Brown's legendary fullback, civil rights activist, and actor Jim Brown unfortunately passed away last week. Brady, as an Ohio native and a member of the Cleveland Browns fraternity of players, what did Jim Brown mean to you?
Well, I got to know Jim Brown. He was there heavily involved with the Browns organization my first couple of years. He would always be around Berea, where the facility is there near Cleveland. And first off, he was one of the greatest athletes. Forget football for a second.
Maybe the greatest athlete of all time.
Thank you for cutting me off and not letting me get to that point, Will. But yes, maybe the greatest athlete of all time. You could put him into that category. But it really was just more of his presence. He had such a quiet presence about him. And yeah, some of that could have to do with the fact of how old he was at that point in time. But I just got the sense that was more of his style. And whenever he spoke, everyone turned and listened. Like he was just that kind of personality, that person that carried so much with him from his experience. And he obviously had a vast experience of doing things outside of the sports world. We talk about civil rights, talk about acting, everything else, even just from a business perspective, understanding branding and marketing, and just talking to you about, your image, especially being drafted to Cleveland as a first round pick. So he lent a ton of advice. I would call him a mentor for sure. And I think the toughest part for him was seeing a team that when he was a part of it had so much success, and he was a part of that success. And then seeing a team that when they decided to come back as an expansion team, could never really find that identity that I think he knew and that he brought to the team. And so that was probably the toughest thing, I think, for him to try to be a part of and witness. Is it was just so much turnover. There's so much adversity, so many other things. He was always that voice of reason, the voice of sanity to me, where if I was having anything I was struggling with, you just go talk to Mr. Brown, and he would give you some timely advice and really help get shape and give you perspective to how you really need to look at things. So I was incredibly sad to hear the news. Just a tremendous human being, and obviously all of his accomplishments are well documented. So really, really sad to hear of this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the greatest athlete of all time. I think he won 8 rushing titles. Is that right? The only time I ever interacted with Jim Brown, because I didn't play for the Cleveland Browns, was actually at I did not. He had been in Houston. Was it at a Super Bowl party? It was the Audi Super Bowl party. I was walking down the hallway, and Jim Brown's coming the other way with like 2 security guards. I was like, "Hey, hi, Jim. I'm sorry." I can remember I said Mr. Brown or Jim. He goes, "What's up, dog?" and put out his fist. And I was like, "Oh my God, he's the coolest human being alive." Good gravy. Of course, no one can forget his memorable role in Mars Attacks as well as one of the. No, I mean it is. He's in a ton of movies. He's a legitimate actor.
Any given Sunday. I mean, that role, I was like, all right, that's the badass that like I would want as a coach, especially on that side of the ball. So he's got some really quotable lines in that one. But I mean, and that's the thing, is it was crazy to think like he decided to stop his career short. He obviously had a disagreement with Art Modell, and I believe at 29 years old, he decided to hang it up. And he probably still had plenty more that he could have, given to the game at that point in time, but he segued into other interests. And like, you could almost look at him as a Renaissance man with all the different things he had his hand in on. So again, just a tremendous human being. Obviously the NFL lost a great.
Yeah. And I mean, I think too, like, I'm not saying that anybody should sign for any certain number of years that you're on this earth because you want to max it out as much as possible. But if you make the Pro Football Hall of Fame and you played for, I believe he played for 9 years, led the league in rushing 8 times from 1957 to 1965. Like, if you lived to be 87 and you had that kind of career and you carried the ball over like almost 2,400 times in the NFL in the 50s and 60s, you lived a very long and fruitful life, like, and an activist, and what he did off the field and what it meant so much. I mean, one of the all-time greats, no-brainer Hall of Famer, 3-time MVP, Rookie of the Year. I think multiple all-decades team, won a NFL championship as well. All 1960s team.
Certainly someone who will be missed and had a huge impact on and off the field. So rest in peace, Jim Brown.